Do you guys remember in my last video how I briefly talked about Kaya getting into a dead fish that was on the side of the riverbank? Well, little did I know at that time, but that dead fish was about to wreak a whole lot of havoc in the following weeks to come. While we were at the camp spot, Kaya was exploring around, doing her thing, and I found her at the riverbank, and she had happened upon a dead trout. It looked like a dead rainbow trout of some sort. Now, if you didn't see that video, basically what happened is we were camping along the side of a river. So here's the rig over there, and the river. And the river was down a steep bank, kind of out of sight. I was in the cabin making coffee, and when I came out, I called to Kaya. She didn't respond, so I went down to the river, and I saw that she had gotten into a dead fish. She was, I don't know if she was eating it, but she was definitely, licking it or something. She was probably eating it realistically, because that's what dogs do if they see tasty sushi on the side of the river. So I was a little bit worried, and a couple hours later, she actually threw up. A little while ago, Kaya actually just threw up on the floor of the truck. And I continued to monitor her for the next couple days, thinking that this could result in some sort of food poisoning. So I was keeping an eye out, looking for signs of food poisoning, more throwing up, diarrhea, low energy, anything. And a couple days went by and she was totally fine. She was acting the same. She never threw up again after that. And I kind of thought that she had dodged a bullet and there wasn't anything to worry about at that point. Because from my understanding of traditional food poisoning in humans, it's something that if you eat something spoiled or infected, then you will know within, definitely by a couple days. But anyways, a couple days went by, no negative signs of any sort, and we continued to just go on about our lives until about a week after she had eaten the fish. I was actually getting ready to go out of town with my girlfriend. We were flying to New Orleans, and the day that we were supposed to leave, I noticed that she was a little bit lethargic, and she didn't really have much of an appetite, but I didn't think too much of that because the day before we had a really big high output day. We went to the dog park. We also went on a hike. And so I thought that she was just recovering and resting. And she hasn't ever really been the most food motivated dog to begin with. Sometimes she'll just leave her food until later on when she decides that she's hungry. So again, I just didn't really think too much of it. So over the weekend while we were out of town, our dog sitter actually informed us that Kaya was acting a lot lower energy than she normally is. She's usually very playful, very high energy, but this time she was kind of more just chilling, playing a little bit, not really eating at all. So we got back after the weekend, and when we went to pick her up, the pet sitter told us that behavior basically continued the whole weekend. She never really ate a full meal, and she was really just a lot lower energy. And right when we picked her up, we knew that something was wrong. She was not very responsive at all. We were calling her name. She wasn't really, responding to it. It almost looked like she was staring off into space, just kind of not really there, And that was scary. That was really scary to see her like that, given the fact that she's normally so alert and so responsive. Now at this point, the dead fish that she had gotten into over a week ago was kind of just out of my mind because, like I said, she had been acting totally fine for about a week, so it wasn't even in the realm of possibility, or at least it wasn't at that time to me. But then when we went to pick her up, and we saw her acting so strangely, I started to question if maybe it did have something to do with the fish that she had gotten into. And then I remembered a comment that I read on that video from one of you guys mentioning something about salmon poisoning. And at the time that I read it, I didn't think much of it because it had already been a few days and she was acting fine. So I thought, She doesn't have anything going on. She's totally fine. I had no idea what salmon poisoning is, so that morning when we picked her up, I decided to hop on Google and look into it. And sure enough, when I got on Google, salmon poisoning is a condition that typically doesn't present symptoms until at least 1 to 3 weeks after exposure to the dead raw fish. Not only that, but left untreated, most dogs will die within 2 weeks after being exposed to salmon poisoning. At this point, it had been about 10 or 11 days since she ate the fish. So after I read that and we saw her condition, we decided to rush her to the emergency room, or the emergency vet, I should say. So we brought her into the emergency vet, filled them in on the situation. They examined her and we told them the story about the fish. And they said that, yes, this is probably most likely salmon poisoning. Salmon poisoning is actually a condition that is found almost exclusively in the Northwest. And basically what it is fish, primarily salmon, but also all kinds of other fish, trout, a lot of other trout, even salamanders can carry it. But they'll carry a parasitic flatworm called a fluke. And the flukes themselves are actually not very harmful for dogs, apparently. But some of those flukes will carry a bacteria called a neo something. I'm spacing on the specific term. But the bacteria is actually what is dangerous to dogs. So when the dogs eat the infected fish, the flukes go into their intestines, and then that ultimately allows the bacteria to enter the bloodstream, and from there, the bacteria goes and spreads to the different organs within the dog's system. We found all this out about salmon poisoning, and they assessed Kaya's current situation. We are told that we brought her in at a good time. Her condition could have taken a turn for the worst very soon. She was already in pretty rough condition. But one of the fortunate things about salmon poisoning is that once it is diagnosed, it's pretty straightforward to treat, and most dogs respond really well to treatment. It's basically an antibiotic that's used to treat salmon poisoning. So at the hospital, they took a couple tests, they aspirated a lymph node. One of the common symptoms is enlarged lymph nodes, and one of the sure ways to diagnose salmon poisoning is by taking a little extraction from the lymph nodes and looking at it under a microscope. So they did that, confirmed it was salmon poisoning. They drew blood. They had her hooked up to IV fluids for about 8 hours because she was very dehydrated. And they administered some antibiotics. And then later that night, they basically said that she is on the uphill road to recovery. They gave her some antibiotics to go home with. They gave us a bunch of other medications to give her as well. And they let us go. They said she should be good. She should be on the uphill now. A couple days go by, and her energy levels actually were getting a lot better. But she still was refusing to eat. She wasn't eating anything. She was drinking a little bit of water, but she wasn't eating, so that was really concerning. And then on the second or third day after we got back, we noticed that her eyes and gums and ears were very yellow. She had jaundice, and that was super concerning. So we decided that was concerning enough to bring her back to the emergency vet. So we brought her to the emergency vet, where they told us that this was a pretty grave condition that she was in. She wasn't looking good. Her energy levels were way back down again. So they hooked her up to more fluids. They took more tests, took more blood, and basically they discovered that her liver levels were insanely high. The doctor that we were seeing said that they were the highest that she's ever seen, and it was scary. It was really scary because we were basically told that the prognosis was fair. And the way that the doctor said fair, it seemed like even that was kind of an optimistic prognosis. So we ended up staying in the hospital over the weekend with her. They were really nice. They gave us a private room. where Kaya was hooked up to her IV and where all of her medications and treatments were being done, and we were allowed to stay with her and even spend the night there. I brought my air mattress, my camping air mattress, and we just ended up spending 3 days at the hospital with Kaya. All the while, they were giving her all kinds of medications and drugs and painkillers and sedatives, and it was a whole mess of a weekend at the hospital, as you could imagine. But fortunately, over the course of the weekend, she seemed to be responding positively. Her numbers were getting better. She was starting to act a little more normal. Granted, she was pissed off at all of the doctors coming in and trying to give her shots and trying to do this and do that. She's a very strong-willed and feisty dog, and she loves people so much, loves people. But in that context, she was definitely getting sick of people coming up and getting in her space and trying to, mess with her. So on the one hand, she was just getting more aggravated over the course of the weekend, but on the other hand, she seemed to be, acting better. And so at the end of the weekend, they gave us the choice of staying another night to continue her treatment there, or basically letting her go home because her numbers were good enough to go home and continue her medicines at home, just through, pills and stuff like that. And at that point, as you can imagine, we had spent a fortune on the hospital stay. All of the shots and medications and tests and this and that. It really added up, so we decided that it would probably be best to just bring her home, keep an eye on her, and if we needed to bring her back, they were right down the street, we could always bring her back. So, after all that, the next day we were expecting her to really, need some time to recover. We were expecting her to be very low energy for a few days. But sure enough, the next morning, she woke up as if nothing happened. She was bouncing off the walls, trying to go play, trying to go out on a walk, trying to resume life as normal. And of course, we couldn't let her do that because even though her energy had returned, she was still in recovery. So for the whole week, we tried to take it easy. There was about 6 medications that I had to give her every single day throughout the day. And her appetite had come back fully. She was drinking plenty of water. She was going to the bathroom totally normally, and everything has really seemed to be truly on the uphill this time around, which, knock on wood, that's currently where we stand now. It seems like nothing ever happened to her, which is crazy. I don't understand how she could bounce back. It's only been about a week and she's literally acting totally normal again. But we're still trying to limit what she does. I'm not going out on any hikes with her. I'm not, bringing her camping. We're not going on adventures or anything like that. We are really still having to take it easy for at least a couple weeks, according to the doctors. And a couple weeks from now, after her medication is done, we'll go back, do some more blood work just to make sure that things are in fact returning back down to normal. That's part of the reason why I haven't posted any videos in a couple weeks. It's just because I haven't obviously been able to go out on adventures because I am caretaking for my dog to make sure that she heals properly and makes a full recovery. Now, part of the reason why I'm making this video is, first of all, just to give you guys an update so you're not wondering what's going on. And second of all, salmon poisoning, like I mentioned, I personally had never heard of before this ordeal. And my research online showed me that, or indicated to me that, a lot of folks out there aren't aware of salmon poisoning, have no idea it exists, have no idea what it is. And since the symptoms don't present themselves until a week after exposure, and it is so fatal in a lot of dogs, I think that awareness and knowledge is really the most powerful tool here in being able to prevent a tragedy from occurring to your dog. God forbid they be exposed to something like this. So by making this video, I'm hoping to spread awareness to dog owners. And even if you don't have a dog yourself, if you have friends or family or know anybody with dogs, just help spread the word as much as you can, because the more people know about this disease, the less chance something terrible happens to somebody's dog because they have no idea what the heck this even is. Anyways, that is the story of Kaya's salmon poisoning ordeal. And a quick update about the truck situation. If you guys recall, on that last trip, my truck had a million different things going on. The primary issue was I was leaking a ton of oil. And so when I got back from that trip, I got to work on trying to repair all of the oil leaks. I ended up resealing the oil cooler, and the high pressure oil pump had a couple leaks at the fittings. So I pulled the entire pump and I resealed the whole thing with all new O-rings, all new fittings. At the same time, I discovered that my high pressure lines were also leaking, so I replaced those, and I resealed my fuel bowl and got everything cleaned up, got it all put back together, went on a test drive. No more oil was leaking, so that was great. But I discovered that I had a diesel leak, and I figured, I pulled the fuel bowl off, I resealed that, I probably just didn't, get something seated on there right. So today I went to go take the fuel bowl apart to see if I could figure out where it was leaking from. And I found the leak, but when I went to loosen up the fitting, the freaking line had completely sheared off the threads from where it was seated on. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm not really wording this properly, but basically I went to take the fuel line off, and 2 pieces now need to be replaced. The fuel line itself, because the threads are, broken off in the end of the fuel line, and the fuel pressure relief cap that's on the fuel bowl that completely just broke off. I have to replace that as well. So when one problem is fixed, another one is created. I couldn't believe it. Now I have to wait for the parts to arrive in the mail and get that fixed before I could do anything with the truck. And hopefully I'll see you guys back on the road in the very near future. That's gonna do it. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.